Welcome to Invest Insights. I'm Abby Maloney. I'm joined today by Peter Frosch, the President and CEO of Greater MSP. Peter, thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Nice to see you, Abby.
Let's begin. You served as Legislative Director for Congresswoman Betty McCollum for 7 years, and prior to that, as Environmental Policy Director for the Minnesota Environmental Initiative. How would you say those roles prepared you for leadership of Greater MSP, an organization that impacts hundreds of businesses and millions of residents across the Twin Cities?
Well, that's a fun question to answer, a little bit of a walk down memory lane. I've had to reflect on that myself and explain it in the past. How do these seemingly very different roles in different sectors of the economy relate to each other? And what I've found is that there's a skill set that's been common to each of these roles and has been added over time. And that's really about building and leading diverse coalitions to tackle challenges that are unsolvable alone, but are conquerable through collaboration. So, in Congress, it was taking on solutions to America's approach to global food security. And at the Environmental Initiative, it was creating a kind of first in the nation effort to clean the 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. And now at Greater MSP, it's shaping and implementing a strategy, a shared strategy that will position our economy to compete and win in the post-pandemic world. So these are big things. And I love working on big challenges, and big challenges require big teams of unlikely partners. And that's not easy to do. So I think that's the skill set that unites those roles. And I've loved every one of them.
The last few years have seen increased division amongst individuals on all subjects, from healthcare to public policy. As a leader in the community, how do you creatively approach these more divisive issues and try and find common ground solution amongst businesses and community leaders?
It's a great question, and such an important question for every region of the country and the world to be focused on now. I think one of the factors is finding the right issue. Not every issue is unifying. Most are and can be. But I think it's also about turning an issue into a project, getting as fast as you can from something that's ambiguous to something that's specific and answerable, and then using that specificity to recruit the right group of leaders. Not everybody is ready to work together productively to shape solutions. Not everybody is actually interested in that outcome, but many are. And you're looking for the leaders who have the mindsets and the patience that it takes to actually achieve a result. And so I've found that leaders who are able to listen to learn, and then actually adapt to do something new together, and they have that willingness. And then they're willing to put some skin in the game to get something done. For example, right now, advancing racial equity is a huge priority for our region, as it is across the country. And one of the ways we can do that is get more capital into the hands of BIPOC founders so they can build wealth and create companies. And so we're doing something we haven't done before at Greater MSP. We're raising a venture fund of funds. And so we've taken a big challenge, broken it into kind of a sub-strategy, and identified a project that really matters. And we're going to be raising $50 million to do this. And this is something that hasn't been done in this way in our region and state before. And we're going through that process now of sorting those leaders who are ready to do something new, who are aligned with this strategy, and who are willing to put real skin in the game.
Greater MSP is a partnership of more than 4,500 individuals from more than 300 leading businesses and organizations. In what ways does Greater MSP serve as an example for creative avenues of collaboration in which the Twin Cities and other metros can look to solve some of the multifaceted issues facing the region?
Another fun question to answer. So we're a part of this national group called International Economic Development Council, and IEDC has a certification process. And so we went through that a couple of years ago. And what we heard from some of the national leaders who are running that process was, wow, what Greater MSP is doing and how it's doing it is pretty different from the way that others are doing it around the country. But maybe this is actually the next version of how regional groups are going to work. And we believe it is. And what we're doing is just starting with a much bolder ambition and saying, we're going to take on the whole challenge of driving a region forward or driving region's economy forward. And that means that we have to figure out a way to achieve change at scale. And that big ambition and the need for scale changes everything. Because what we've done is we've adapted from what was an economic development organization when we started a decade ago to be a true working partnership, which is more of an ecosystem. Increasingly you hear that word thrown around, but you mentioned I worked in an environmental group, so I care about ecosystems. And this is a real thing to us. And we've been cultivating the relationships and the capabilities it takes to actually build and scale solutions over time so that we can raise this fund of funds that I was just talking about and do 10 other big things at the same time. No entity of 25 or 30 people could do that alone. Only a genuine partnership could do that. So I think the model here that is finding a way to really get into the resources of the organizations that are part of the partnership so that you can do things bigger than your budget would allow.
And this season, we're talking about creativity. So how would you define creativity? And what does that look like for Greater MSP and economic development moving forward?
Well, what a moment of transformation we're in right now in this country and the world. So geopolitically, we've got huge supply chain issues that are changing the way that companies are thinking about the risk, and it's opening up major new opportunities in the United States that are different from what we saw just a few years ago. We're coming out of the pandemic, and we're seeing how the geography of work and expectations about who does what and where they do it is fundamentally different. And we feel a new urgency to make real progress around equity and inclusion in our organizations, in our communities. And these big shifts all add up to a leadership moment. It's not a moment for management. You can manage something that's stable, but in a moment that requires leadership like this, we need creativity to shape vision. And that's the hard part. It's easy to see where you were, and a lot of people can assess where we are, but it takes creativity to look forward and say, this is where we need to go, and this is what we could be. And then the leadership to say, here are the steps that it takes to get from where we are to that place. And so I guess that's how I view the creativity that's needed this moment. And that's what's exciting about it. And so that's what we're doing at Greater MSP. We're kind of turning this into the region's whiteboard, where we can come together and sketch the next version of our economy, looking at the same thing, everyone putting their ideas together, and then make it happen.
I like how you point out that you don't need managers, but you need leaders. And I think that that's indicative of a greater picture that we're seeing across the nation, that metro areas, to be competitive nowadays, need leaders. So I'm delighted to hear your opinion on that matter, and that MSP is taking the driver's seat, so to speak.
Thanks for the conversation, Abby.
Fabulous. Well, thank you again. That was Peter Frosch, the President and CEO of Greater MSP. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to hear more CEOs and thought leaders share their opinions and advice on today's business climate. Until next time, I'm Abby Bologna, and this is Invest Insights. Thanks for tuning in.